Hey guys, it's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing my May wrap-up. So let's go ahead and get straight to it and talk about the books that I read this month. So the very first book that I picked up this month was It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This is a really hard book to talk about. If you've read Colleen Hoover's books before, then you know that she typically will use very sensitive topics as plot devices and for shock value, which I don't think is a good thing. For most of her books, I would go ahead and state what exactly are the more serious topics within the book so that you are aware going into it whether or not the book is going to be harmful to you. However, with this book, I think it's extremely important to not know what the book is about before going into it. I was told to go into it blind, and that's what I did. Now I don't have any extremely serious triggers where this could potentially really harm me. So if you are a person who does have specific triggers that are very serious and can be very detrimental to your health, I would suggest looking into this book more so that you know what to prepare yourself for before going into the book. However, I would suggest going into this blind because it's important to experience the story the same way that our main character Lily experiences the story. So the novel opens with Lily sitting on a rooftop in Boston, and she's reflecting on the events of earlier that day where she behaved sort of inappropriately at her father's funeral. And as she's sitting up there thinking about her actions, another man comes barging onto the rooftop, completely disturbs her peace, throws a temper tantrum before realizing that Lily is sitting there, and they get to talking. The story progresses from there as these two get to know each other better. Also get these diary entries of Lily from when she was a teenager, gets to discover her very first relationship with this boy named Atlas, who was a homeless boy that lived in an abandoned house behind her parents' house. How her friendship and relationship with him affected and molded who she is in the present timeline. The way that Lily experiences the situation is so similar to what so many other women experience. This book just completely broke me. Absolutely broke me. I was so mad at the characters and I felt so betrayed, which was the whole point of the novel because Lily felt so betrayed. I was rooting for them, and at the same time I knew it was wrong to root for them. I hoped and knew that these characters could be better than what they were being, and they just couldn't do it. And it was just so frustrating, and I was just so emotionally invested in these characters, and I totally understand why Colleen Hoover wrote this story the way that she did. Absolutely adored this book. It was so moving. It was so powerful. Just like all the other ones, I ended up giving this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely adored it. After that, the next book I picked up was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the third book in the ACOTAR series. It is the concluding book to Feyre and Rhys's story arc. I have so many opinions on this book, as with every Sarah J. Maas book that I read. I will be doing a full spoilery book talk for this book, so I'm not going to talk about it too much here. I really enjoyed this conclusion. It wasn't my favorite of the 3 books, but I still think it was an extremely satisfying and wonderfully done conclusion. I really liked how she wrapped up all the storylines. I liked how she used all of the characters that she had introduced over the 3 books, how they all played major roles in the war and in the outcome of the story. Nesta and Cassian emerged as being 2 of my absolute favorite characters of all time. I hated Nesta in book 1. Hated her so much. And then she started to grow on me in book 2, and then in book 3, just like, she is my woman. She is so fierce, and I love her. There were some character developments in this book, though, that I felt were extremely forced and extremely poorly done. Does that even make sense? I didn't like the way they were handled. Felt like it was so inauthentic to the characters and the storyline. I'll talk about that more in my book talk, but there were a couple things, one in particular that really rubbed me the wrong way, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I liked how she wrote her battle scenes, how she wrote the war strategies and the tactics. It was really approachable and easy to understand. I cried like a freaking baby at the end of this book. I was so upset, and then I was so happy. Just a lot of feelings. Of course, I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. I can't wait to see what else we get from the world of Prythian. So after that book, the next one I picked up was Broken Hearts, Fences, and Other Things to Mend by Katie Finn. This is the first book in a trilogy. In this novel, we follow Gemma, a 16-year-old girl whose summer plans go horribly horribly wrong with one ill-fated trip to the garden center of Target. And following that, she is forced to go stay with her dad in the Hamptons for the summer, and she has not been back to the Hamptons since she was 11 years old, when she pretty much screwed over her best friend. She's never had to deal with the fallout of what she did to them. It's my first time I've ever read anything by Katie Finn. I've read almost all of her books published under Morgan Matson. I love all of Morgan Matson's books. Everything that you would think of with summer is in her books. They're perfect summer reads. So I didn't really know what to expect going into this one. Definitely had a huge revenge aspect to it. It's pretty early on that she starts to hint towards the revenge betrayal plotline. I didn't start to pick up on those things until about halfway through, and I have to admit that I was very impressed that the revenge plotline was so well interwoven into the story. I didn't pick up on it until about halfway through the book, and I had to go back and reread certain scenes, and I was like, wow, she's been planning this since the beginning. There's so much forethought in it. I do want to continue with the trilogy and find out what happens after the conclusion of this novel, because there are definitely some cliffhangers, some very unresolved things. If you like Morgan Matson's books, I think you will also like this trilogy, and I end up giving this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And the final book I read in May was actually a reread for me, and that was Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. I wanted to reread this book in order to prepare myself for Lord of Shadows. This is the first book in the Dark Artifices trilogy. It takes place 5 years after the conclusion of City of Heavenly Fire, which is the last book in the Mortal Instruments series. And I really, really liked this the first time I read it, and I liked it just as much the second time I read it. I felt just as connected to the characters. I was just as moved by it. It was just as interesting. I picked up on quite a few more details when I read it a second time, and there are some things that I'm even more excited to see fulfilled in Lord of Shadows. I did film an entire book talk for this as well, so that will be coming very soon, I hope. Like I said, because this is a reread, you've already heard me talk about how much I enjoy this. I'm very excited to see how this will tie into The Last Hours now, because I know that those two series will be very interconnected, just like TMI and TID were. So there's just a lot to look forward to with the Shadowhunter Chronicles, and I'm very excited to see where she takes it and what we have to look forward to with the various characters. So again, on reread, I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars. And those are all of the books that I read in the month of May. Let's go ahead and talk about the TV shows that I watched. So like I mentioned last month, I am still watching Pretty Little Liars. I think we have like 3 episodes left. I am so excited that it's almost over. They had kind of like a reveal of who this new A figure might be at the end of this week's episode. I thought it was just so anticlimactic. We've been there, we've done that. Oh, there was one character moment in this past week's episode that I was so excited about, because I love this couple so much. I'm also still watching the Originals season 4. Just like I mentioned last month, I'm still enjoying it. It's still a lot of fun. I like the villain this time around. I still want some crossover from the Vampire Diaries. I'm very convinced that it will, so I'm still waiting for that. I did, though, watch this month a very exciting documentary on the History Channel called Superheroes Decoded. This was the coolest thing I've ever seen. A documentary about superheroes and how they were formed, why they were created, the history of them, how over time these characters changed and evolved to fit what was happening in American society at the time, and how other superheroes were created as a result of different conflicts, different movements within American society. Like, my favorite superhero is Iron Man, and he was created as a result of the Vietnam War. I did not know that. I was just like so blown away by how intertwined the political current of the US and superheroes are. It was so cool to hear how they created Superman and Batman and why they're so different. If you are even remotely a fan of superheroes and history and American politics, I would highly recommend watching this. Y'all, you just gotta watch it, okay? It's so cool. So now let's go ahead and talk about the movies that I saw in theaters. I saw 2 movies, and they were both fantastic. The first one I saw was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I really just am obsessed with Baby Groot. Baby Groot is the cutest freaking thing in the entire world. The rest of the movie could have totally sucked, and it may have, I don't really know. All I cared about was Baby Groot. I give this movie 5 stars on Baby Groot alone. Everything else I didn't even care about. I did though really like that we had the backstory of Peter's father, because that was something that I was really curious about at the end of the first movie. But the one thing that I was really upset about is that nothing from this movie really felt to lead into any of the Avengers stuff. Nothing felt like it was setting up for Infinity War. I decided to add a third Guardians of the Galaxy movie, because why not just milk the cow until it's dead? I don't know where this new third Guardians movie will fit in the new movie timeline, I guess, because they're gonna have to make room for it now. I just wanted a little bit more of the overarching storyline. Aside from that, the humor was really good. It was really funny. The characters were on point. So I am excited to see the third movie, but at the same time, I'm like, there needs to be a third movie. And then the last movie I saw this month was the best movie of all time, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man Tells No Tales. This movie was perfect. Let me tell you, the whole movie could have sucked. And I wouldn't care, because there was like a 2-minute segment at the very, very end of this movie that had me deceased. I literally fell out of my chair at the movie theater. That was how shooketh I was. I'm gonna get teary-eyed again just thinking about it. We're setting up for a 6th movie, and oh my gosh, I loved the new characters. The 2 younger kids were fantastic. Henry is just like his dad. It was like seeing a little baby Will Turner again on screen. It took me back to the Black Pearl days. I really enjoyed it. Even though we had different directors this time, different people producing the movie, it felt very much authentic to what has already been done. There was amazing dialogue, as with every Pirates movie. Yes, there were ridiculous things, like they dragged a house through an entire Caribbean city, which was a little far-fetched for me. I mean, I thought that the jumping on the stagecoaches in the last movie was a little too much, so this was like really over the top. So many feelings. So that is it. Those are all of the things that I read and watched within the month of May. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!